that the name Suresh Raj, which is my full name, and even Suresh Raj, which is my shortened work name, means God of gods or king of all the gods. If you go by Western culture, do you ever watch the show Heroes? A
Yes.
number of years ago.
Mm,
So there was a character in the show called Suresh. John is their name because nobody ever calls him Smith John.
mm.
But in the same format, if I'm copied in, I literally have had this, they will refer to John with the right name, but they'll refer to me as Raj. Raj, comma Suresh. Frankly, when I say I get very frustrated saying it because it's common sense. If you can identify a Caucasian person's name despite the email format, you should be able to do the same.
So if any of your colleagues that have done that, that are listening to this podcast now, and they've got that little smiley face, welcome to Leadership in Color. So pleased to have today Suresh Raj, Chief Growth Officer at McCann, New York. This conversation is going to be fantastic. In fact, Suresh hasn't told me this, but I know from the little bit of time that we've had together, he's a little bit competitive, and I'm sure this is going to be his aim's going to be to make this the best conversation we've had yet. Is that fair?
And that's a slight understatement. Very competitive, overachiever. Uh, but yes, I do like sort of aiming for the stars. And Shez, thank you so much for the option. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for the conversation, and thank you for the opportunity.
So happy to have you here. So the first question I always ask, tell me about your name.
Right, super interesting actually, this one, because frankly, I only learnt the meaning of the name not too long, well, about, what are we, 2024? In about 2008, 2009 is when I sort of learned a little bit more about my history. And I'll give you a little bit of a background there. My mother is half Malay, half Arab. My dad is half Indian, half Palestinian Jew. And I've got an Indian name because my paternal grandfather is Indian. And so that's the Indian lineage. And when I did ask about the name, Suresh Sundaraj, and I literally had to ask lots of friends because when my parents got married, due to cultural and religious backgrounds, they were disowned by their families. So I never grew up with extended families or aunts, uncles, grandparents. I just don't understand what that concept is. So I literally, my ecosystem became my friends, and a lot of my friends were very internationally cultural, and a number of them actually had Indian heritage in them. And so one of them actually, and a couple of them, in fact, explained that the name Suresh Sundaraj, which is my full name, and even Suresh Raj, which is my shortened work name, means God of gods or king of all the gods. And I kind of thought, talk about overachiever. It's in the name. So that, as far as I understand, is the meaning of the name and the heritage of the name. But again, whilst my name is Indian in heritage, it's actually Southeast Indian in heritage. It's actually my life is an amalgamation of multiple cultures and ethnicities.
You do an interesting thing with your name. So you shorten your surname,
Yeah.
whereas most of us shorten our first names. What's the story behind that?
Try to get Westerners to pronounce Sundararaj. So if you go by Western culture, do you ever watch the show Heroes? A
Yes.
number of years ago.
Mm.
So there was a character in the show called Suresh. So I thought, oh, that's mainstream. So people will know how to pronounce the name. But the spelling of my last name is Sundararaj, and even I get tripped every time because I don't know how many RAs I've actually repeated on a phone when you're trying to book something or paying with credit card, etc. So for simplicity and to assist from a work point of view, Raj just became the easier go-to. It was also kind of the name my dad sort of referred to himself. Raj was all his, and his last name was Sundararaj, and he would refer to himself as Raj. It would be easier for people to refer to him that way. So it just sort of caught on, and it is a lot easier for a lot of people.
Yeah. And do you ever end up being called Raj? Was that ever a thing growing up in school?
Do you know the number of, not in school, not in
Okay.
school, only in the work in my working life, particularly with email formats that have like, your last name, comma, first name. And what is and this is actually super interesting. That same principle in email format applies to people of different cultures, particularly Caucasian culture. So if you have a Smith, comma John, John Smith being your name, clients like or whoever's email will immediately know, oh, John is their name because nobody ever calls them Smith John.
Mm.
But in the same format, if I'm copied in, I literally have had this. They will refer to John with the right name, but they'll refer to me as Raj, Raj, comma Suresh. And so, like, well, if you identify that John is the first name in the Smith, comma John name, why would you assume Raj, comma Suresh is Raj Suresh? So I like for me there it's a little bit of common sense that doesn't exist in that. So I've had to correct it. And, I'll always reply, thanks, my best, Suresh. Whatever it is, I always sign off as Suresh. And they'll catch on. Like, it's the clues in the email. Like I'm signing off as Suresh. I wouldn't sign off Raj in an
Mm.
incredibly formal way. And then after about the third time and it's repeated, I'll say like, just to clarify, my actual name is Suresh. Raj is my dad's name, and I don't go by my dad's name with a little smiley face. And then people go, "Oh, I'm so sorry," etc. And frankly, God, when I say I get very frustrated saying it because it's common sense. If you can identify a Caucasian person's name despite the email format, you should be able to do the same.
Mm. So if any of your colleagues that have done that, that are listening to this podcast now and they've got that little smiley face,